يا بني آدم قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا ولباس التقوى ذلك خير ذلك من آيات الله لعلهم يذكرون. O children of Adam, we have indeed sent clothing down to you, so that you may conceal the private parts of your bodies, and as a means of beautification. The clothing of taqwa is best. This is from the signs of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, so that you may take heed. In this verse of the Qur'Ānic Kareem, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is addressing the children of Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. Hence, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is not specifically addressing the Muslims. This is so that humankind can understand that the dress they wear is a great blessing, the worth and value of which must be recognized by them. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has mentioned three kinds of clothing in this verse. The first kind of clothing is libasan yuwari sawatikum, such clothing that covers your private parts. It covers those parts of your body that you would not open in front of others. So that is the least that a person could adorn himself with, which we know as awrah or the satar, that another person is not allowed to look at. That is the bare minimum a person should clothe himself in. The second type of clothing, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions that He has not only given us and blessed us and sent down for us in this earth clothing that is sufficient to cover the necessary parts to be covered of the body. However, He has sent more than that. He has sent warisha, clothing that one adorns and beautifies himself with. Clothing that a person wears and he looks more handsome or beautiful. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in this particular type of clothing has also indicated that He has sent different types of clothing for different seasons as well. Clothing that one wears in winter, clothing that one wears in summer, also is included in this second type of clothing, an extra pair of clothing, an extra kind of clothing. Not only is it limited to covering one's awrah and satar, but Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has sent for us more than that. So these are the two primary uses of a person's dress. One is to cover those parts of the body that are worthy to be covered, and the second is for decoration, for adornment, to protect oneself from hot and cold weather, etc. This verse of the Qur'Ānic Kareem has been mentioned after the incident of Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salatu wassalam having committed an error because of which the clothing that was on his body had dropped off. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions in the Qur'Ānic Kareem that immediately Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salatu wassalam and Hawa radiyallahu ta'ala anha began covering themselves as soon as their clothing fell off. So this shows us that the first human beings to come on the surface of this earth were given the first command, or the first natural instinct and inbuilt quality that had come into them was the fact that they would cover those parts of their body that wouldn't be exposed in front of others by their natural instinct. Many people have a misconception in this regard. Those who believe in evolution, etc., say that the first people that came on this earth, they were naked, and as time went, they invented dressing, etc. However, this is false and it is a misunderstood concept. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, after gifting a person with Iman, after commanding a person to believe in Him alone, the first thing he ought to do is to dress correctly. When a person dresses correctly, it means he will dress in the correct way, in the correct manner. A boy's clothing should not resemble that of a girl and vice versa. A person should dress in a manner that is not revealing these body parts that he wants to cover, that are shameful if he shows to others. A person should dress in that kind of clothing that shows modesty, in that kind of clothing that shows humbleness and humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That kind of clothing that doesn't bring into him arrogance and pride. So these are some of the guidelines in regard to our clothing. Clothing should be modest. Clothing should be something that is humbling and not creating pride and arrogance in a person. And together with that, a person shouldn't be extravagant on his clothing as well. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given various guidelines in terms of our clothing as well. So this verse of the Qur'Ānic Kareem also teaches us that clothing is a great bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why there are various du'as that we have been taught by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in regard to clothing. The du'a to be recited upon wearing clothing. The du'a to be recited when one is taking off his clothing. The du'a to be recited when one is wearing new clothing, etc. These various du'as are mentioned in the ahadith by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, indicate that clothing and dressing is a great bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third type of dressing, which is the ultimate, which is the best and most required type of clothing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. The dress of taqwa, the dress of the fear of Allah, ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. That is the best of dressing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent for you. In some recitations of the Quran, other ways or modes of recitation of the Quran, the scene on the letter libas is read with a fatha, which indicates to the fact that Allah has sent down for you, revealed in the verses of the Quran and revealed by the medium of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the ahadith, the clothing of taqwa, which is explained by Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that the clothing of taqwa refers to good character. The clothing of taqwa refers to good conduct. The clothing of taqwa refers to being a better human, to adorn and beautify oneself with the akhlaq and character of the Qur'Ānic Kareem, with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the kind of clothing that we ought to have all the time in our hearts, on our bodies, as a means of protection for us from the fire of Jahannam, as a means for our salvation in this world and the hereafter. So the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum explained libasul taqwa as the clothing of good character and good conduct. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. This is the best of clothing. So amongst the three, of course, the first is necessary, the second is permissible, and one may use it, one may abstain from it, and the third is also necessary. One should beautify himself with the best of character. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adorn us with the best of character. Ameen.